All right. Hey, Vikings fans, welcome in to another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
And I'm Austin.
We're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer. We like talking about the Minnesota Vikings.
We do. And it's, for a lot of this season, only one of those things has been consistently fun. But for the last month or so, both of those things have been consistently fun.
5 in a row, man.
4 in a row, I
Four
think?
in a row.
Four.
5 out of the last 6. Sorry,
5
that's
and
what
1.
I was thinking.
Yep.
That's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun, especially when you don't care anymore, which we were getting close to apathy.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're back, baby. Now we're going to care when they lose.
Oh, yeah. Well, we got to talk about what we're drinking today.
We do. Would you just look at this beer? You could look at this beer if you follow us on TikTok, because we do like a pre-show first taste of every beer. You can also look at this beer the entire episode because we post it up on YouTube now.
That's right.
Which is pretty awesome. So if that's how you like your podcast, we're there. But yeah, this beer is amazing. So what are we drinking? Maybe you should announce it today.
Well, here's why I chose this beer. I brought the beer today.
Thank you.
And I got to thinking, we've had a lot of really great beer. This is our 13th episode, so this is the 13th different beer brewed in Iowa, because we exclusively drink Iowa brewed beer on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so I got to thinking, I'd really like to be a little more intentional and have a little bit more of a purpose behind the beer that we drink. So we've had Millstream before.
We have.
We had their
great.
Oktoberfest, I don't know, a handful of episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. They're based out of Amana, which is just, 100 miles west or so of where we're from.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to dig a little bit. I started to do some research, and I wanted to know the history of beer in Iowa.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm going to give you a Jordan Addison number of tries, 3 tries.
Oh, man. Did he wear 17 in college? Can I have that?
I don't know.
I don't know what he wore. He had 17 touchdowns.
You're going to get 3 right now. To guess what the interesting fact about Millstream is in terms of the history of Iowa beer.
All right. So my first attempt, I'm just going to take the low-hanging fruit guess. Were they the first brewery in Iowa?
You're close.
Ooh, okay.
You're close.
Okay.
But not quite.
Oh, man.
And there's some history that, we could really go deep if we wanted to go on a history lesson here. We don't have to.
That's fine. Oh, man. First, well, they weren't the first brewery. That's the only guess I have. Are they if they were the oldest, then they would also be the first.
Well, I think you need a little history here to fill in the blanks.
Okay.
Before Iowa was a state, there were several breweries that opened. There was actually one here in the Quad City area in Davenport that was prominent. Dubuque had one, and Iowa City actually had quite a thriving beer industry, and this was all prior to Iowa's statehood.
Oh, okay.
And then when Iowa became a state, prohibition took over very quickly.
Ooh, okay.
And almost all alcohol was outlawed, period. And then there was a huge surge of German immigrants, and so they started to relax on alcohol laws a little bit, mostly with wine and beer.
Okay.
But the harder stuff was kind of off limits. And then, of course, like 1919, the whole country was under prohibition. There was no alcohol really anywhere legally. And then at some point down the road, Iowa put out this 5% rule that if you were going to brew beer in Iowa, it could not exceed 5% alcohol. And that wasn't lifted, surprisingly, until 2010.
Wow. I know a lot of states still have certain percent rules on different kinds of beers, so I didn't know that about Iowa. Wow.
So I'll spoil it for you, because
give me the deets.
You're kind of circling around it. Millstream is the oldest active brewery in the state of Iowa.
Interesting.
They weren't the first necessarily, but the first breweries of Iowa are long gone. And I don't know. If somebody out there knows more of the history, we would love to know. I would love to know.
Maybe Millstream knows. Millstream, let us know.
Yeah, Millstream, if you got any more background on that, hook us up.
Yeah.
Give us some deets. But Millstream, 1985 is when they were founded. They are the oldest active.
1985?
1985. So they were brewing beer, but it had to be under 5% until 2010.
Interesting.
And that's when beer makers were allowed to exceed that 5% mark. And that's really when you see the boom in craft breweries around Iowa.
Yeah.
So.
Sweet. I like it. And this one particularly, which is, have we even said what we're drinking? It's the Schild Brau Amber.
Brau Amber, yep.
The Vienna style lager. It's very good. We gave a little bit of opinions on it in our TikTok. But you mentioned the 5% rule. This one is 4.9%, at least there, as labeled. So
right there.
They're following the rules. And I know you can get pretty accurate on that percentage. So good job, Millstream. This beer is delicious. I can't wait to sip on it the entire podcast. And everyone else, if you are able to find this beer, you definitely should, because it's really good. It's got the Skol hop stamp of approval.
Stamped.
Sweet. All right, we'll talk about it a little bit more, too, at the end, see what we feel like after a couple.
For sure.
But at the end of what? What else do we talk about?
Gosh, we got to talk about this game.
Are you sure? Do we have to? Are you sure?
There's really only 3 words that you need to say about the game against the Falcons.
We haven't talked about this, but can I have one guess at this?
Go ahead.
Josh freaking Dobbs.
You are correct.
Boom.
Those are the 3 words.
Yes.
Skol. We need to Skol that.
We need to Skol that.
Oh, yeah.
Does he even know what the Skol chant is?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm sure he does by now.
He's going to find out if he doesn't on Sunday.
Oh, my gosh. He probably heard it a little bit in Atlanta. I guarantee there were some Vikings. I saw Randy Moss 84 on TV.
Did you?
I did, in the back of one of the end zones.
This was our first game watching together this season in your basement.
Put out a couple of TikToks. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
We put down a few beers, and that was fun, too.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't stick to the Iowa brewed beer rule, but that's only on the podcast.
That's only for this. That's only for right here.
We did drink the Kinship, the Amber Lager. Is that
yes,
what it
we
was?
did.
Yeah. So that was good. It was a fun game to watch.
Another amber beer for you.
Yeah, you like these ambers. You're trying to get me to like them, and it's kind of working so far.
Just kind of my lane, man.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Well, you get to like what you like. I really like IPAs, so
I like a beer that tastes like beer.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of people want a beer that doesn't taste like beer, and those people are kind of weird. That's my wife right there. She doesn't want a beer that tastes like a beer. She'd rather drink water. But yeah, this game was so much fun.
Well, it started off really frustrating and unexpected because Jaron Hall's the starter and rookie drafted in the 5th round this year, sat behind Kirk Cousins, has been in the quarterback room since April. And I think I felt confident. I know you felt confident. I think the coaching staff felt confident that he was the guy. And we went 3 and out in the first drive, but then that second drive, he looked really, really good.
Yeah.
What was his stat line? Do you remember in that?
Oh, I think he had something like 70 yards passing in the game.
And I think he was like, 5 of 6 or 6 of 7. He
and
only missed once.
If not for a little bit outside throw to, was it TJ?
Yeah.
One of the first...
I think you're right.
First and goal plays that they had. He kind of overthrew TJ a little bit. If not for that, he'd have had a touchdown, and he wouldn't have gotten injured a play or two later, and probably would have played some more. But even his first drive, the 3-and-out drive to open the game, he ended that on 3rd down rushing for around 10 yards. He almost got the first down rushing. He looked pretty good. He looked mobile, and obviously in that second drive, he looked really good too. It's a bummer that we didn't get to see that extend. Hope he's okay. And there will be some question marks here in the future when he's, past the concussion protocol, especially depending on how Josh freaking Dobbs, the Pastronaut, especially how he looks. Because if Josh Dobbs comes out against the Saints and looks the same and or better than he did against the Falcons, we don't have any questions. Like, you don't take that hot hand out. You keep rolling with Josh Dobbs. However, if Dobbs comes out and looks shaky and not great, hopefully that's not the case, then we do have some questions, because hopefully this concussion of Jaron Hall is not a huge deal. But yeah, if Jaron Hall's not concussed anymore and Dobbs kind of comes out and looks a little shaky, then we have a whole podcast, a whole week where we're kind of talking like, who starts? What do we do? What should we do? We're not there yet.
Well, before the game had even ended in Atlanta, you were telling me like, well, Jaron Hall starts next week. He starts next week. Like he's the obvious starter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously his injury, his concussion has dictated,
as it should.
He's
got to be healthy. He's got to be okay.
Yep. And I think it was a pretty easy decision for Kevin O'Connell. But let's say that next week, let's say this, hypothetically speaking, Dobbs comes out and he doesn't play great, but he also doesn't take a safety in the end zone like he did on his first drive and fumble the ball on the next 2 drives. Like, he plays okay, but he doesn't play lights out. Who do you go with at quarterback?
In that kind of scenario, that's where I'm thankful I don't have to make that call. In that scenario, truthfully, me, Austin, as a fan, fully trust the coaching staff in whatever they do. Just me kind of thinking about it and what makes sense. I thought the whole time Jaron Hall made the most sense because, like I said, he was drafted in April. He's been with the team since then. He theoretically should know the playbook a little bit more, definitely knows names of guys, and that's by no means cutting down Josh Dobbs. I love Josh Dobbs. He was amazing. And if he's the better quarterback, Dobbs, then absolutely you go with the better guy. But it just made sense to me to stick with Hall because it just seemed like he would be the better option. But again, I'm fully okay with whoever they put behind there. I'm not going to be one of those guys that's like, no, I hate Josh Dobbs because he's not the guy that's been here since April. If the coaches are good with him, then I am too, especially if it looks okay, if they're playing all right. I'm not going to be the first one to say, oh, Dobbs threw his first interception, take him out. Like, come on, trust the coaching.
Well, the good thing is both of them looked good. Granted, the sample size for Hall has been pretty small.
Very, yeah.
We had, I don't know what, 2-3 drives maybe at Green Bay, and then the first 2 drives at Atlanta. So, his sample size is small, but he's got some reps now in real games, not preseason. And I mean, obviously Dobbs came in, and after he kind of brushed off those early mistakes, he was lights out. He was the leading rusher on the team. He threw for a touchdown. Yeah. He threw a 2-point conversion. He just looked like he was in command, which is crazy to think because he had no idea who any of these guys were.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you followed the team at all, you probably heard this at this point. But Dobbs and KOC were communicating the whole time, as every quarterback and coach do throughout the game. But it was to the point that, if I'm understanding the situation right, KOC was in the headset, and in the huddle, he was saying, okay, Josh, tell the huddle these words. Tell them this play. And he just word vomited, exactly verbatim what he was hearing. And then when they broke, and as Dobbs was walking up to the center or to be in the shotgun or whatever, KOC was like, all right, here's what that play means.
Jordan
here's
Addison's
what you might
to
see.
Your right. He's going to run a hitch route, or he's going to run this route.
Yep. And
he might be open because there's a single high safety or whatever.
Here's what you might see. Here's your first read. That is insane to me. And, obviously, we're just a couple of dudes in Iowa. We don't know a whole lot, so maybe that's how it goes a lot of times. But just the way that story has been getting out there so much, it's got to be a crazy thing. And I think even Mark Sanchez. Jeez, heck, have another one, Austin. He even said something in the media this week that that scenario kind of happened at one point too when Sanchez was
Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, with Kevin O'Connell in Washington.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because they had been teammates together in New York. And a kind of similar situation kind of happened. KOC was translating the play as he was walking up to the center. That's just crazy to me. And to be able to execute. One thing that's huge, and it's only going to be helpful throughout Dobbs' career is that he is mobile. So it's not like once a defensive lineman or linebacker got within 5 yards, he was dead to rights, because he could kind of move around. And we saw that a couple of times. I mean, he rushed for a touchdown that at the beginning of the play, you didn't think that was going to happen.
He kind of reminded me of like a young Russell Wilson almost.
Yeah.
Like great pocket presence, can throw the ball, is smart, knows how to read the defense. But man, if things fall apart, he can get out of it, and he can use his athleticism and his speed and create plays. And he did that countless times. I think he rushed on 3rd or 4th down multiple times and got the first on his feet.
I wrote down his rushing and passing stats. So Josh Dobbs right now is the 3rd leading rusher on the Vikings this year.
For the whole season.
He's got wild. 7 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown.
That's wild.
And he's tied for 1st in rushing touchdowns on the team. The other one being
Cam
the
Akers.
Now injured reserve Cam Akers. And he is 2nd on the team in passing yards, which that's not crazy surprising because Kirk has been the guy the whole season.
And Jaron Hall hadn't played as much as he has at this point.
Hall doesn't even have as many passes as Dobbs does now. Dobbs was 20 for 30, 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. And very importantly, no interceptions. That one weird...
There was that one weird one where it looked like his arm was coming forward, but the ball got batted, and it didn't even hit the ground. It just went right to a defensive lineman.
Yeah. So in my mind, I think, well, obviously it was labeled as a fumble because I looked up the actual stats, but immediately I knew, like, once you saw the replay, it like got knocked out of his hand when he was starting to pull it back. So it was not a pass.
Right.
Either way, it's a turnover. And I think he had 3 fumbles in the game.
He recovered one of them. Mm-hmm. He recovered one of them.
But what do you expect for a guy that, I mean, like, I think I saw today his car finally made it to Minneapolis.
Oh, gosh.
Today, on Wednesday.
Well, think about this. Can you imagine he didn't even take any practice reps throughout the week. So walking up under center and touching Garrett Bradbury's butt for the first time, like, hey, man, nice to meet you. Let me just put my hand right here.
Well, and he put out his own TikTok, which I don't know if he does his own or if he's got a guy or whatever. But it was in that TikTok was a clip of the Pat McAfee show, and they're talking like 15 seconds before he goes out there, he's got the whole offensive line around him and linemen around him listening to what his cadence sounds like. Like, it's just crazy. And hopefully it wasn't just like an adrenaline-filled, lights out, pass out game, and it's not, or why can't I think of words? It's not, they can't do it again, but you got to think it's only going to be better. Like, he's only going to be more comfortable and probably doesn't need 100% of the plays like translated to him as he's walking up to the center. Maybe that's still probably going to be something they utilize a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which if it works, do it. Even if you're Kirk and you've been here forever and that's the best way to do it, do it. Like, if it works, who cares what the thought process is outside of the building? Just go for it.
We should, at some point, maybe not on this episode, but talk about college football utilizing similar radio devices in their helmets, because the whole Michigan scandal right now is kind of blowing up, and that's been something I've heard countless times on all of the news outlets. It's just like, well, if college football would just utilize the radios and the helmets like the NFL does, then we wouldn't be talking about this.
That's good talker. Maybe we could, if we have Forrest on again in the future, which I think, on show production meeting here, I would like to have Forrest on again. We got another Bears episode coming up.
Yeah. Should we just have him on every time the Bears play?
I'm okay with that. Forrest, you're listening. You always are. We love you. You're going to be on for the next Bears episode and maybe the bye week and definitely in the off season for draft talk and stuff. But anyways, yeah, I think that you're probably right. Like, if everybody has the helmet radio capability, everybody should be using it. Like, as long as it's not, a competitive advantage or disadvantage to either team. Like, if everybody's using it, everybody should.
Right. But anyways, yeah, I'm still amazed at what happened on Sunday. I haven't watched the whole game like you have, but I've watched all of the stuff that the Vikings have put out on YouTube and Twitter and stuff like that. And just every time I'm just like, man, how did that even happen? Like, what? I mean, at one point we're sitting on your couch thinking like, well, it's a good season.
I mean, you could probably attest to this. When Jaren Hall went down, I was pretty quiet for a while.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I was pretty negative. And I even just thought about this yesterday when I was watching the game back, when Jonnu Smith had that crazy screen touchdown that he ran like the whole length of the field and scored a touchdown. And then he hit the tunnel and he just slipped down. And he looked like he was okay, but it was still funny to watch. You were like, oh, he slipped down, huh? Like any normal person would laugh at a funny physical thing like that. And I was just sitting there like, whatever. They just scored a touchdown. The Vikings are going to lose. This whole thing is stupid. I miss Kirk. I miss Jaren Hall. Like, I was just so negative about it. And you're laughing at a funny thing. And I was just
you did laugh eventually. It took you a minute or two.
In the moment, I was like, I'm being a jerk. I need to, okay. Like,
when you watch the replay, then you're like, all right, that was kind of funny.
It was funny. And it's funny because he's okay. But, like, did you see on that play, Jonnu Smith, I think for the whole week in the NFL, he was the fastest clocked player in the NFL, really? 21 point something miles an hour. Like, last week, nobody ran faster than he did on that play. He's a tight end. Like,
good for him.
Yeah, that's
fast.
Crazy. He has Jonnu Smith. Let's get off on a tangent. He's been an underrated dude his entire career. I've had him on fantasy teams. I don't know anything about him personality wise, but like football wise, when he gets opportunities, he balls out. Like, he's great, and especially on a team with Kyle Pitts, who has been kind of the opposite. Like, he's been overhyped and underperforming his whole career.
It's funny you say that because I teach high school, and there are a bunch of high school boys in my class today talking about their fantasy rosters, and one kid was like, yeah, I had Kyle Pitts on my team, and I just looked at him, and I'm like, dude, Kyle Pitts played terrible this last week. He's like, yeah, I know. I think I'm going to drop him from my team. Like, that would be a wise decision.
Kyle Pitts in college was legit. Yeah. Like, just the size and speed and production, he was amazing, and he just hasn't turned it on in his NFL career. And at one point, I think he caught a ball for a good catch. And I think I turned to you like, oh, this is the game that he turns out to be this Hall of Fame tight end, because of course it is against the Vikings. He didn't do much other than that, but I think I saw something, either Paul Charchian tweeted it or he retweeted it. It was this long tweet about like, the Vikings aren't great against tight ends, and he's actually going to be playing with Heineke, who's a quarterback who utilizes tight ends, and everything's set up for Kyle Pitts to have a great game. So, of course, Jonnu Smith is going to have a great game. And it was this whole, like, yeah, Kyle Pitts can't do anything. So Jonnu Smith is going to do what the tight end should do. I dropped my paper.
It's all right. You can get it.
All right.
I'll ask you a question while you're getting that.
Okay.
So, speaking of kind of like, will Kyle Pitts turn out to be great or not? Josh Dobbs, what do you think? I mean, is he going to come out and play like he did against Atlanta, or is it going to be kind of a different story? What are your predictions for this next week?
I want to start off my answer by saying I hope he's really good. And if he continues to be good, I'm not going to crap on him just for the sake of crapping on him, because I hate the quote-unquote fans of a team that always find something wrong with what they perceive to be a bad aspect of the team. If Josh Dobbs keeps balling out, I'm super excited, even to the point that, look at what Geno Smith, he kind of resurrected his career a year or two ago with the Seahawks. And
yeah.
He got a late, journeyman payday, and he's doing okay. I mean, he's not MVP, but he's doing okay. So I hope Josh Dobbs is the answer, and I hope he keeps balling out. I don't predict that to happen. Just look at his whole career. He's either been a backup or a spot starter, and he's never been, like he was this week, the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Like, this week was awesome and a lot of fun, and I want to keep it rolling. And if he keeps playing great, let's go. If I was betting on the outcome of the next few years of his career, I wouldn't put a lot of money on the idea of him being a Pro Bowl level quarterback for the Vikings and making it so the Vikings don't draft a guy this April. Again, I want that to happen. I want him to be good. I want him to be the savior and lead us to the Super Bowl. I don't think it'll happen. I think he is. I don't even know. I think he is like the backup savior to come in and kind of give you a little bit of mobility and give you a little bit of excitement when you need it, but I don't know if he can sustain it.
This is just a thought that popped into my mind while you were saying that. I wonder if, because we're going to play the Saints this week, down the road, like next season, Kirk comes back, we get him back on a 1 year, 2 year extension, whatever. He's healthy. He's playing like he was before he went down a couple weeks ago in Green Bay. What would happen if Josh Dobbs kind of plays that Taysom Hill role?
Yeah,
Could you see that?
I mean, I know what you're getting at because he's got the mobility, and he's a little bit more athletic.
Smart to do that, though.
Maybe, but like, I don't.
It's not a knock on Taysom Hill.
Yeah, sure. Breaking news: Evan thinks Taysom Hill is dumb. No, just kidding. I don't know. I kind of roll my eyes at that kind of a role on a team, because I don't think Taysom Hill has equated into wins. Like having that gadget guy that comes in, I think it only adds like an annoying thing in your playbook or on your team that you feel like you have to utilize, and maybe you want to force that utilization. Plus, I don't know what kind of hands Josh Dobbs has as a receiver. He's taller, but I don't think he's much of a blocker. I think he's definitely a quarterback. He's in the position that best suits him. But I don't know. You never know. If KOC, who I trust in, if he finds that role to be intriguing and something that could equate to wins, then yeah, let's see it. You can always give it a shot.
At the very least, Kwesi has something to play with when it comes to the off season and free agency and all that, right? I've seen a few tweets now that have said he plays well the rest of this year. Kirk comes back and it's time for the Vikings to move on from Josh Dobbs. Could be some really good trade bait or,
depending. I mean, I don't know what his contract looks like. I'm assuming it's a 1 year deal. It's gone. I dropped the darn paper again. But yeah, I mean, they could try to do something. Plus, I mean, if he keeps playing well, he could play himself into another contract, whether it's a starter contract or we still want you on the team, especially just because we have so many unknowns with Kirk. I'm a big Kirk guy, and if he's healthy, then run it back. But there's a lot of unknowns with Kirk too. He's getting older. That's not a laughable injury.
Coming off a really serious injury.
Yeah, but also I don't think it's, and I'm kind of talking out of my butt right now, I don't think it's on his planting foot. And Kirk's not known to be super mobile anyways. So you're not talking about Michael Vick losing his running ability. You're talking about Kirk, who he's more of a pocket guy anyways. He's been mobile he has shown that kind of ability sometimes.
He's hesitant to be, but he can be.
But he's not somebody that you draft in fantasy because, if he can't pass it, he's able to throw it. Josh Dobbs definitely seems to have been able to showcase that ability more. 66 yards on the run. And it's not I don't think they designed any quarterback runs against the Falcons. But it could be interesting.
How could they design any quarterback runs? They didn't know that he was going to be playing.
The whole design went out the window when Jaron Hall got that concussion, which, again, I hope he's okay. I hope we're talking about – well, actually, I hope not. Never mind. Because if we're talking about, should we put Jaron Hall again? That means Josh Dobbs hasn't played well, which I hope he plays well. I want stability. I don't want to have to go through a couple of losses to find out you should have been starting a different guy. I don't know. He's definitely an option. You would think come off season, signing another contract time, Dobbs would be open to signing with the Vikings again, unless some other team is like, oh, we need him. We're going to throw like what the Broncos did with Case Keenum. We're going to throw $20 million a year at him, which at that point, like, you got to do what you got to do. You got to make your money. So I don't know. It's kind of exciting to have this like unknown about that position for the Vikings. It's scary, but it's exciting because the last 5 years we've known, or however many, 4 or 5 or 6 years we've known.
This was his 6th season with the Vikings.
Yeah, Kirk's our guy.
Yeah,
which that's a blessing to know. Like, all right, Kirk's our guy. He's not gonna get injured. You know, like people have had problems with his contract, but whatever, it's not their money. But this is kind of fun to think about what could happen. Do you draft a guy? Does Dobbs kind of play well enough to make you reconsider drafting a guy? I don't know.
And I think the great part about all of it is the culture that Kevin O'Connell has created in the locker room. And it's not just him, it's all the other guys that are buying into the culture that he's wanting to establish. I think on any other team, you know, if your MVP caliber quarterback goes down like Kirk did, and you trade for a guy minutes before the trade deadline, bring him in, your other backup goes down, you bring in the other guy, it probably doesn't end like it did for the Vikings, and I think a lot of that has to do with the culture. I mean, I watched, and I think you watched too, all of the like kind of like sideline video from the weekend, from Sunday, and you just see the brotherhood, and not just talking about Josh Dobbs, but like all across the board. Like, dudes are making plays on the field, and everybody, regardless of position, is high-fiving, celebrating. And I don't know what it's like in those tough moments, like when Josh Dobbs took the safety on his literally like 3rd play as a Viking or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there were some frustrations, but I don't think it was like Kirk and Zimmer getting into a shoving match type of.
I want to know what that was all about.
Oh, I think
100%.
about that often.
I do too. Sorry, not to cut you off, but
no.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the point I'm trying to make, right? Like, the culture in the Zimmer days is drastically different now under Kevin O'Connell, and I think that's what makes this team so special. It's why we went 13-4 last season. It's why we've won 4 straight, 5 out of the last 6. And beat a perennial Super Bowl contender in the 49ers, beat the 6th best defense in the Atlanta Falcons on the road at their place as underdogs.
With a guy who didn't even know the guys playing next to him.
Yeah. He's literally like, okay, you're Garrett and you're Brian and you're okay. All right.
I saw a video he was on. I think he's been on a few podcasts since the game, but somebody asked him, like, did you really not know anybody's name? He's like, I knew a few first names. I knew a couple of nicknames, but like, he probably still doesn't know everybody.
I think I saw something from practice today that he was making it his goal to learn all of the guys on the 53-man roster before the game on Sunday.
Which, that's honorable, but like, dude, I'm more concerned about the playbook.
I teach high school, and I've got 75 students, and it's November. I've had these kids since August, and I'm still struggling with some of their names. So if he can do that before Sunday, props to him.
That whole thing kind of reminded me. In college, I had a job where I worked at the like athletic facilities, doing like a little bit of security and like facility maintenance and stuff like that. And there's probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 of us that were on the team that did that. We worked the athletic events and stuff. And there were some times that we did like where we removed the basketball court and the football turf, and, you know, long hours of like being right next to each other and joking around and working hard. And I did that for all 4 years. I, even in the moment, couldn't have told you many of their names. And to the point that, like, I remember one time we were out somewhere and I saw one of them and I talked to him for like an hour and we were chatting and hanging out. And, you know, when we went our separate ways, my wife now, who was my fiance at the time, maybe my wife then, I don't know. Either way, she's like, "Oh, who is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's some guy I work with." "Oh, what's his name?" I have no idea.
No idea.
But I knew that dude. I'd know him now, but nope, didn't know his name. So like, names are hard. So Josh, we got you. Like, the team's got you. Names are good to know, but playbook. Let's worry about the playbook and
Get some chemistry with.
I'd rather you
coach.
know like how. I'd rather you know how JJ wants the ball thrown to him than know his name, if that makes sense. Which you're gonna know JJ's name.
And that's an important update. We don't get JJ back this week. He won't be
Probably
playing.
not. It hasn't been official.
Well, it's kind of unofficially the writing on the wall.
I think the coach today did kind of say like it would be a little aggressive. I forget the terms he used. A little aggressive to say that he'd be back this week. So I don't expect him back this week.
Yeah, I would say earliest next week. On the road at Denver.
Yeah,
maybe.
And I agree. But
we'll see.
Today, this afternoon on Wednesday, they did designate him to return to practice. So if I understand it correctly, they have 21 days from today to decide if they're going to actually activate him to the active roster, take him off IR, or if he's going to be shut down, I think, for the rest of the year.
He would almost have to be.
And I don't know what the timing had to be for them to designate him to return. Like if they had to do it today or if they had some time to do that. But if they did have time to do that, then doing it today seems like a good sign. Like, again, probably not this week against the Saints, but if it's next week against the Broncos, like that's pretty exciting. Like,
yeah.
And I saw another tweet sometime. We should be better about liking these tweets and remembering them. But somebody said, like, yeah, isn't it kind of crazy that at this moment, maybe it was Dustin Baker, at this moment, getting the idea of getting JJ back kind of seems like a little cherry on top of everything. Like the last 6 games have been pretty fun. You know, we've only lost one of them. And after everything's been going on, you know, you have 2 Achilles tears, you have a concussed third string quarterback, your initial backup was already on IR when your MVP like quarterback went down. The running game still hasn't figured it all out. The defense has been figuring it out. But after all that, like you're 5-1 in your last 6 games, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
And you might get JJ back, and that's kind of like a footnote of what you're talking about. Like, that's awesome. To think about one of the best players in the league coming back is a footnote. Let's go. That kind of seems very Vikings-like.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it'll be fascinating to see what unfolds with effectively 2 wide receiver ones. I mean,
oh my gosh.
Jordan Addison has been playing out of his mind.
And he's a huge reason why you haven't really felt the loss of JJ.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't expect him to be what other rookie wide receiver can you name that's better than him right now? Or at least playing better than him right now?
I don't think any of them.
I think he's definitely the best rookie wide receiver. He's one of the better wide receivers in the league right now. Like, at the pace he's been the last month or so, if you make that the whole season, his numbers are up there with Tyreek Hill and stuff. He leads the team in touchdown receptions with 7 right now. I was looking at stats a little bit earlier. The Vikings right now have 3 players with over 500 receiving yards. JJ, Jordan Addison, and TJ.
Yeah.
And again, that's another thing we can say that's been awesome is TJ. He had some dropping issues, but that hasn't been a huge problem the last handful of weeks. I mentioned the defense a little bit earlier. That was kind of a concern. They couldn't stop the run, but they've kind of turned it around enough that, like, now it seems like definitely Brian Flores is getting a head coaching job. But I wish, like, he wouldn't, and he would stay for a little bit longer.
There's no salary cap on coaching positions, so Wilfs, if you're listening, you probably aren't, but
no, they'll never hear us.
Well, if they are, let's make that happen, because it'd be great to have a defensive mind like that around for a few years.
Yeah,
let's make a run at this.
He is making KOC's job that much easier.
Yeah.
When you have to worry about a quarterback that's been with you for 4 days, you don't also want to have to worry about how Danielle Hunter's playing, which that guy is a freaking monster. He's my number one on re-sign right now.
Leads the league in sacks right now with 10.
Is he still the leader after? Because he didn't get any.
I think there's like 3 tied at 9.5, but he's the sole leader with 10.
Nice. How about he didn't get any sacks last week, but he broke the game mid-second quarter when it was after that weird interception that was actually a fumble. The Falcons got
goal
it down
line stand
to the goal line. He was solely responsible for at least 2 of those plays not getting into the end zone.
100%. Yeah, we watched those together.
Yeah, he was insane.
He was just shut, he was a wall.
Yeah, I somebody pointed it out today. Will Raggets, if that's how you say his name on Twitter. I think it was him that tweeted out. It was one of the all 22 clips, video clips, and one of those 2 insane plays at the goal line, Danielle Hunter literally picked up Jonnu Smith and threw him into Bijan Robinson. So Hunter didn't get the tackle on that play. I think that's the one, if you're looking back, the one where Danielle's helmet actually came off. And rolled around. Right before his helmet got popped off, he threw, I'm pretty sure it was Jonnu Smith, into the running back, and which bounced him back, and then other Vikings were able to get into him. It's like he was possessed for a couple of plays and was not going to let the Falcons score a touchdown, and it was awesome.
Well, there was another one where he wasn't directly involved in the tackle, but Tyler Algier was the ball carrier, and he kind of got up to, I don't know, the 3 or the 2, and Danielle was there, disrupted the play, and then 5 or 6 other Vikings just pushed him back, and he ended up getting tackled for a loss back at the 5 or the 6 or something like that. So yeah, the defense played great all game. Byron Murphy had that interception.
Oh yeah, and how many almost near intercept? There was 3 near interceptions.
And they got their hands on the ball quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Paul Allen said in the play of the Byron Murphy interception, he was like, "Yes, Byron Murphy gets the interception. You knew Taylor Heineke was going to give us one." Yeah, and that's just kind of the gunslinger mentality Taylor Heineke has. But yeah, you knew they were going to get a turnover, and it was so awesome to see. We've had some fun games to watch lately, even with the devastating Kirk injury. And how about, before we talk about Cam Akers' injury, I know you've seen the play,
where he blocked for Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, Dobbs decided to run it around, and Cam was like, "Oh, we're doing this."
Lays a huge block on a dude,
a defensive lineman. He just cleats him, decleats him. It's, oh my goodness, that was such a great play.
It was awesome.
And I've been a Cam Akers fan this year. When I was looking at stats earlier, I was kind of surprised to see that Akers only has 170-something Viking rushing yards this year. And obviously he tore his Achilles. His season is over. I mean, maybe his Vikings career, maybe his whole career is over. I can't imagine going through 2 different Achilles tears. But if he can come back, I want him back. I want him as a Viking just because of that play. And he had a great game too. He was a great assisting player, and yeah, he didn't have a ton of rushing yards against the Falcons. But
when you think about where a lot of those tailbacks line up in kind of this modern NFL, where it's not the quarterback under center all the time, but the quarterback's back in the shotgun quite a bit, and those tailbacks are shoulder to shoulder, you've got to imagine Cam Akers and Alex Madison are analyzing the defense like a quarterback in some of those moments, and then maybe not in the moment, but on the sideline telling Josh Dobbs, this is what I saw. this is what they're giving us. This is what we typically do in those situations. I mean,
yeah.
they may have stepped in and helped out.
Yeah. But we
some
didn't
of
even
those.
realize that play that Cam Akers was injured.
That block.
Well, no.
Oh,
Well, the block, sure. But like because I think I like
Achilles
went to
tear.
the bathroom or something. I came back to you and I was like, oh, they're tweeting Cam Akers probably got another
I was
Achilles
oblivious
tear.
to that. I was like,
It was
what?
crazy. Late in the third quarter, I think. That's a rough play. He's been playing really good. I want him back as a Viking.
Yeah.
If he can work his way back, because that's not a small injury, and he should know. I mentioned a week or two ago on the podcast, like Kirk has a guy that can talk him through his injury on his team because Cam Akers came back, and now they're going to be rehabbing together.
Yep. I did read something somewhere that you read all of these predictions of like hot takes that people have. One of the hot takes was Alexander Mattison will be one of the worst performing rushers in Vikings history over the course of a season. And I don't know that I like that hot take necessarily. And I like to think maybe a little more holistically because he's been pretty effective. And the tandem, Cam Akers and Alexander Mattison together have been effective.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we have some other backs. Ty Chandler could get thrown into the mix. Kene Nwangu is now back from IR.
Yeah, I think it was Wes Phillips, the offensive coordinator, said the other day. One of the coaches said, like, you're going to see a lot more Ty Chandler. Somebody asked them about, like, what do you do at the run game now that Cam Akers is out? And the response was, you'll see a lot more Ty Chandler, which he's got some size and speed. And, I mean, obviously it wasn't clicking fully early in the season, but maybe losing your job to a guy that gets traded to your team kind of wakes you up a little bit. Maybe the pressure gets taken off, so you figure some stuff out in a less pressure situation. I don't know. If he turns out to be a really good RB1B, because I don't think, I've said it before, Alex Madison, I don't think he's a true number one back, and he's proving that so far. I think he's really good as the like thunder to someone else's lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, if you think of LaDainian Tomlinson and Michael Turner from back in the day, like those guys made each other better. Like, you got to have that change of pace, running back duo. It definitely in this NFL and on this past first team.
And I guess the reason I brought that up isn't because I don't necessarily agree with that, but even if Alexander Mattison ends the season with historically low numbers
for a starter,
for a starting RB1, I still think he's contributed a lot more than his running stats will show. He has a receiving touchdown or two receiving touchdowns.
At least a couple. Well, and even that huge...
And that big 70-yard or 60-yard play that Jaron Hall threw to him.
Yeah, I think it was 40,
quarter.
but still, it kind of opened things up.
It was a big chunk play.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those are things that don't show up on a rushing stat line that don't really communicate how impactful he's been to this team. So I don't know. I don't know that I agree with a hot take like that. But
yeah, I don't either.
The Vikings have proved this season that they are a pass-first team, and the passing game sets up the running game.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, it's the other way around. Like, that's traditionally how offenses work.
Yeah.
The rushing game sets up the pass game.
I think the NFL is changing, though. It's definitely more of a passing league. So, yes, I think in the days of Adrian Peterson, not like this most recent era of football, yes, you ran on first down to maybe hopefully pass on second down, and to make the play action true, hold the defense true on a play action play. I think it's changing up a little bit, not to the point that you ever get rid of the run game. Like, that's just crazy. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Alex has been the worst starting running back in Vikings history, especially when you add in his ability to pick up pass blocks and actually catch the ball when he needs to. He's been okay. It's just the whole run game has been frustrating.
Do you think they consider anything crazy like signing a free agent like Adrian Peterson?
I think, and I'm pretty sure it was Wes Phillips who gave that Ty Chandler answer. I think that comment saying you'll see a lot more Ty Chandler kind of answers that question you just asked. They've got enough bodies in the running back room. Like you said, Kene Nwangwu, he's coming back. Has he been activated? We should know this.
I don't think he was active this last week against Atlanta, but he might be, and I would maybe expect him to be. You have the injury report.
Yeah, he's not. I don't believe he's on their injury report.
I don't think he's on it.
No.
So I think we might see him like returning punts or kicks maybe at the very least.
Well, and it seems like, I mean, they're pretty good with Ty Chandler being the main kick returner.
Yeah.
He had that one big one that was called back in the Packer game.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel there's got to be something with Nwangwu. Like he's had the chances, to be able to get into the lineup as a running back. He just never been in there. So I don't know what the holdup is for him.
And maybe now with Cam Akers out indefinitely, maybe that's his opportunity to step in and shine.
Maybe. I mean, that seems to be what the coaches are willing to do right now. You never know. I mean, Adrian Peterson is out there. He's a free agent. I would be shocked and appalled if they signed him to come back.
That would be a blockbuster free agent signing.
Talk about a footnote on this season alone. Like, yeah, that'd be crazy. But no, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I think Josh Dobbs is going to run for 2,000 yards before Adrian Peterson gets signed to any team again, let alone the Vikings.
2,000? Wow, that's a big number.
No, that's yeah. But yeah, I think at the moment they're content with the guys they have. We haven't heard any buzz about them working out any running backs. Obviously, they can't trade for any at this moment because we're past the trade deadline. I don't know if they would have to begin with. Like, even so, let's just say the trade deadline's a week from now, and Cam Akers is out. Like, who would you trade the house for? Derrick Henry? Like they already didn't trade for him. So like,
right.
And I don't even know. There's no big name out there on the free agent market. Even if a guy like Josh Elliott is his name Josh? I should know this. He was a Pro Bowler.
What
the
team?
Cowboys. He's a Patriot now. Ezekiel Elliott. Jeez, Ezekiel is such a close name to Josh. That's how I can get around that.
Josh
Even if he had
McDaniel,
still been a
maybe is how you're. I don't know.
These Millstream beers are too good. Even if like Ezekiel Elliott was still a free agent, like I don't think I don't feel like the Vikings would go out of their way to sign a name like that. Obviously, he's a Patriot now, so he's not even out there. But I think they're good with who they have. Now, if you go another couple of weeks and you see in-game and in practice how the team looks without that 1B and Cam Akers, maybe they rethink it then, but I think right now they're good.
Well, and maybe these more mobile quarterbacks, Josh Dobbs and Jaron Hall, maybe they're enough to satisfy what we need to do in the running game to supplement what those true running backs are doing, and they can kind of carry the other parts of the rushing game on their own and be productive. Who knows?
What do you think? Should we move on to the Saints game officially?
Yeah. I think the Saints game is really interesting. I think the Saints are not as good of a team as their record indicates. I did a little math today. The Saints haven't really beaten anybody of note.
No.
All of their wins are against losing teams, or teams with sub 500 records. I think. Did I write it down?
You wrote it down. So yeah, you put it down.
Remind me.
You said their wins come against teams with a combined record of 12-31 this season.
Yeah. And the Vikings, I'll admit, I looked at the Vikings as well. We're not as impressive. We're not much more impressive. The Vikings are not much more impressive than the Saints in that category. But I would say the win against the 49ers was a very signature win, a statement win, and the Saints just don't have one of those. Granted, that win was with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Cousins, who balled out on Monday night, who played a great game. I mean, when we talked about this in that episode, that was the most complete game in all phases that the Vikings have played all season long. I'd say still to this date.
I agree. The Packer game was pretty good.
Packer game was pretty good too, but
I agree with you.
And I still think the 49ers game was better.
That's still against Kirk Cousins. Breaking news, does not play defense. And the 49ers in that game had, albeit injured, they had Christian McCaffrey, who played every snap on offense. And the Vikings, I think McCaffrey had 2 touchdowns. But outside of that, like, he didn't, break any NFL record for touchdowns. Defense played well in that game. I would argue, too, yes, they were losses, but the Vikings held their own against both the Eagles and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Again, with the same caveat you gave, that's with Kirk Cousins. But in both of those games, that is pre-Brian Flores figuring it out with the defense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the Vikings, on paper, should be better. Another stat you wrote down, apparently Vegas doesn't agree.
2.5-point underdogs at home, which is kind of surprising.
Which means, I think they say, like, in a neutral site, I think they say, like, the home team gets 3 points. So, theoretically, in a neutral site, Vegas would see the Vikings as, 5.5-point underdogs. So, I don't know. Vegas seems to be weirdly accurate a lot of times, but we're super biased. It just feels like the Vikings are better than the Saints, even with, I mean, maybe especially off the high of the Josh Dobbs performance, but even without Kirk, like, it just feels like the Vikings are the better team. Because, I don't know.
That's the way I feel, but I don't know. Maybe we're just blinded by our own bias.
We absolutely are totally biased. Like, there's no question about it. We are beard up Vikings fans. So, of course, we're going to think the Vikings are way better than they are, but we're also going to think they're way worse than they are sometimes. You probably heard it, listeners, in my voice, at least the first 4 weeks of the season, how bad I thought the Vikings were. But
I would say, I mean, we're maybe a little more in tune with what's happening than your casual fan. I mean, we follow the team, and we're on Twitter daily, and we're keeping track of the ins and outs, and so I don't know. I think we have a little bit of a leg to stand on when we say the Vikings they'll hold their own.
Yeah, I'm not going into it like I did, because when we were going into the 49ers game, I would have put the mortgage on the 49ers in that game. I didn't bet on that game, but I probably would have. I'm surprised I didn't put $100 on the Niners, because I would have won like $105 because they were that heavily favored. I'm not feeling that this week. I feel like the Vikings, I'm not saying they're going to dominate and win by 40 points, but I just feel like they feel like a team of destiny right now, especially after that Falcons game with Josh Dobbs. Like, I just feel like they can beat the Saints.
Here's a little bit of a hot take, and there may not be a ton of weight behind this. I don't know, but I do think with Josh Dobbs as the starter, at least for the time being, who knows what happens with Jaren Hall moving forward. But let's say he's the starter for at least the next few games before the bye. I think at some point we'll see a slight regression with Josh Dobbs.
The dust will settle, sure.
Yeah. And I mean, it was not just like lights out from the beginning. I mean, he took a safety and then fumbled on his first 3 possessions as a Viking. I mean, it was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
But then once he got the bad stuff out, it was pretty much all good from there. I mean, there was really not anything bad There was that one other fumble, and I think it was just maybe miscommunication from Garrett Bradbury, just that lack of chemistry with your center.
Yeah.
And he fell on it and recovered it himself, which was fine. But, I mean, other than those 4 plays, Josh Dobbs had a magical day in Atlanta. I don't think we see that again. I think the Pastronaut comes down to earth a little bit. I'm not saying that he's gonna, have a terrible game or anything like that, but I think he's going to have a little bit more of a realistic game, and a little less of this Cinderella type magical game that he had in Atlanta.
I disagree a little bit.
Do you?
I think now that they've figured out the way that they should operate, they're going to fine-tune that whole translate the play from the huddle after the break. Here's what you're doing, Josh. I think that gives KOC a little more presence on the field, because KOC, he's not to say he hasn't been, but he's going to be even more in tune to what the defense is doing. He's going to be reading the field like a quarterback. And he's going to be in the mind, like Madden, of Josh Dobbs. And I think the defense, they've got it figured out. They do. I think we see more than one turnover from the defense, maybe even a touchdown scored from the defense this week.
That would be awesome.
And I think the Pastronaut, he's going to plant his flag right on the 50-yard line of US Bank Stadium. I'm predicting it right now. It's not going to be a blowout, but it is going to be a comfortable win. It's going to be the second win of more than one score for the Vikings this year. Look at it to be like 34-14.
Wow. You heard it here first.
That's what I'm saying.
There you go.
Skol.
I don't know that I'm going to go that far. I do think the Vikings win. I think it comes with some struggle. But I don't know. Maybe you're onto something. Maybe Kevin O'Connell told Josh, like, man, that worked really well. Yeah, don't worry about, like, the playbook.
We got this.
We'll figure this out later.
Or like, they study together, and maybe they'll come up with their own, like, hey, this play says this. So, like, when I tell you deep ball, just effing throw it. Just go.
Yep.
And trust me that I know what the play should be. You'll figure it out in a few weeks, but just trust me. Like, just here's your read. Don't even go to the second read. Just here's your read. If that's not there, run it.
Well, and he's the guy that I think you can trust in that situation. I think Kevin O'Connell is proving, and I've seen some things from maybe some minds a little smarter than ours that have said, like, he's really coming into his own as a play caller and establishing himself as one of the more elite offensive minds in the league right now.
They say invention comes out of necessity. This could be the start of like a whole new way of communicating and a whole new way of a coach playing the game. I feel like with Kirk, you could just give him 1, 2, or 3 options and be like, Kirk, you got this. Here you go. Here's my call, what I'm seeing. The ball is yours. And this might sound like I'm diminishing Josh Dobbs a little bit. I don't intend to do that. But this could be like KOC playing the game, doing what I do when I play Madden, seeing the field, being like, dude, just trust me. What did I say last week about Jaren Hall? All he has to do is trust his abilities and trust his coach and his headset. That's actually kind of interesting because I did say, like, just listen to your coach and do what he says. At that point,
we had no idea what would happen.
Yeah. So I think if Dobbs, or really any able-bodied quarterback, could embrace this idea of, like, my coach has got me. He's been here. Yeah, KOC wasn't a Pro Bowl quarterback, but you don't get to the NFL and be bad. Like, sure, you're playing on a team with Tom Brady. You're not going to start. But, like, KOC can see the field. I think maybe in some ways this could unlock a whole new fun aspect of coaching and play calling, like you said, for KOC. Just trust me, Josh. I got this. Listen to what I say. Do what I say. If you can't do what I say, freaking run
the ball.
Boom. I'm excited. I'm about to run through a brick wall off a hypothetical thought process of the coach right now.
Yeah, maybe you're onto something. Time will tell, right? And I don't know. Maybe that's what worked against the Falcons. I mean, and the Falcons were not a bad defense.
No.
I mean, coming into the game ranked 6th overall in the league, like that's nothing to shy away from. And to throw this random dude that you picked up right before the trade deadline, who knows nobody, who knows none of the plays, to come out with a win, and to come out with a win that looked pretty darn good. It was a lot of fun. So hopefully the Vikings can keep it rolling this week against the Saints. And I mean,
it would help too if the run game had a little bit of life.
Yeah.
You get some fire under your butt after losing your 1B, and block a little bit differently, a little bit better. Not at the expense of the pass game, though. Do what works. Win the game. Get home. Let JJ come to a team that is 6-4, right? Like, open it up after that, because even right now, the schedule is pretty favorable.
Yeah, go to Denver, and then you've got the Bears at home before the bye.
Yeah,
and then I think, what do you have? Raiders, Bengals after the bye or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I should know. I do have it right in front of me. Yeah. Raiders and at Bengals after the bye.
And then it's Lions, Packers, Lions, isn't it?
Jeez. All right. Season. Close it out.
Yeah.
Win and get to the playoffs.
It will be really interesting to get to that first Lions game. Is that Christmas Eve? Is that the first Lions game? At home against the Lions?
We don't have the dates here.
No.
It might be. Maybe.
Anyways, it'll be really interesting to play the Lions for the first time, because even that first game against the Lions could have a lot of divisional implications. And obviously that second game, I think with the way things have been trending, that second game, the last game of the season, could decide the division.
Yeah.
I mean,
that first game, we'll be doing the math.
Yep.
We'll know, hey, if we win this.
Yeah. Well, and the Vikings could have stormed all the way back, and by week 18...
I'd say continue to storm. They've stormed.
Yeah, oh yeah.
5-1 in the last 6. They've stormed.
They're back. It's a good place to be. It's an exciting place to be. And, gosh, hopefully we have more exciting things to talk about next week. I
agree. So, what do you think? Should we start closing this out?
Yeah, well, I mean,
What'd you think? We're both done. This beer was good.
This is a really good beer.
This was.
I will get this again.
Oh, absolutely.
I've had it before, I think. I can't remember exactly, but it was a good one.
Yeah, Millstream, you have sold me. This is my second favorite beer we've had on the podcast. Just because we had the Pseudo Sue that one time. That's always got to be my favorite.
That's your top.
But Millstream, darn it. This amber, what's the official name again?
Schild Brau.
Schild Brau Amber, a Vienna-style lager. Millstream, thank you. This has been a treat. I appreciate it. Put out more great beers like this, and I'm sure you already have, so I'm going to keep looking up your beers.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. All right, man. Where can people reach out to us?
Pretty much anywhere. I mean, just look for the Skol hop. You'll find us.
I feel like at this point, if you Google the Skol hop, SKOL, you're going to find us. We're on Twitter or X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere you can get podcasts now, because you made sure of that.
Yep. And we're working on a website.
We are. So. We own the domain now. Nobody can steal that from us.
Under construction.
I did give out the first sticker. I guess the first sticker was probably to Forrest on the podcast. But I gave out. I hand delivered to Matt for emailing us. So if you don't email us, we'll still give you a sticker.
Yeah. Give us a shout out anywhere, on any platform, social media, email, whatever. We've still got stickers to hand out.
Yeah.
And we've got some other ideas, maybe involving something like this.
Yeah, at least football steins. These aren't steins.
We'll just call them beer glasses.
Beer glasses. Yeah. Well, you never know.
We've got some ideas up our sleeves.
Maybe if you send us an email, maybe you'll be the first one to find out about that. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll keep that under wraps until you reach out to us.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out for
There we
sure.
go.
But yeah, we're gonna wrap this thing up now.
All right, man. Till next time.
Skol.
Skol.